I'm Tiffany Green Williams with Bronx Narratives, Events and Co-Reach co-director. Super excited as we get into our 10-year campaign to be interviewing Miss Kelly. Kelly, you want to introduce yourself real quick?
I'm Kelly Augustine. I am a celebrity and fashion stylist, and I am also a content creator, influencer. I don't know what we call it these days.
All of the things, all of the
All the
things,
things.
all of the things. I'm a brand stylist as well. I also mentioned that to you. So I was like, oh, I gotta do this interview because we're already aligned. I love that you focus on inclusivity and all of those things. So we're gonna get into that in just now. I'm gonna go off screen. So I want to just open up with what is your vision of utopia in the Bronx specifically, and especially when it comes to fashion and representation?
Um, I think y- a utopia in the field that I deal in, regardless of location. Actually, I'm going to close the window. I don't know if we can pause this. I'm going to close the window because my neighbor's dog.
So jumping right in, our one of our campaign themes is the utopia, and just um, just reminding people of all of the things that the Bronx has to offer, all of the things it's already offering, and all the things that it could be. So my question to you is, what is your vision of a utopia in the Bronx, especially when it comes to fashion and representation?
I think in general, when it comes to the Bronx, and utopia looks like access.
Mm,
Um, we obviously all know, just being in New York City, there are neighborhoods and whole boroughs that are just denied access to things. As a uh, plus size, like fashion stylist, um, I think that access just extends to having access to nice clothing, clothing that
mm,
fits well. I grew up, I always say I grew up everywhere because I started in Yankee Stadium and then moved up to 241st and everywhere in between. Um, but there aren't really a ton of places where you can get like really nice clothes in the Bronx. Um, you can get high quality clothing in the Bronx. It's just like I don't even know a place where we can do like some real like high quality shopping. Um,
mm,
and it's important. It's important because it helps with understanding personal value, understanding that you deserve good clothes, and um, you deserve to have things made for you if you need to have them, tailored to you if you need to have them tailored to you. And I just don't think that access really exists in the Bronx like it does in other boroughs.
You're absolutely right. And I'm really glad that you pointed that out. Now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't, you would go outside of the Bronx for all of those things.
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm gonna say the double-edged sword with in order to get that, and because I don't know the path to how to get access, right? There's like I can ideate around a lot of things. One of the first things I think of, oh, so we had the demand for it, it would happen, right? But then it depends on who's demanding it. And so if
right.
you have what I want to call them, the people that move in, if they move in and demanded these things, then we would have it. But then
Right.
there's that double-edged sword because you want to keep the culture and you want to keep the essence of the Bronx. But if we were the ones that were demanding it, because I'm not sure if we are, if
Yeah.
this collective is, then it
Well,
would
the
be
thing is, it's like you can demand something that
mm,
you don't know.
mm,
Like you can't ask for something if you've never experienced it or
that's
you've
true.
never really seen it. The only way I've really seen it is like, some of my best friends in high school are from Ghana. And just knowing like the tailors and the seamstresses, like if you take them fabric, they will make like traditional clothing for you or really make you anything that you want. But outside of that, like if you've never seen that happen in the Bronx, it doesn't really exist. We have retailers. Obviously, we have like the Bay Plaza, we have Fordham Road, all of that, but that's all like fast fashion for the most part.
Right.
Um, where like in Brooklyn, there's whole shops dedicated to tailoring and seamstresses, and there are so many like black owned boutiques where you can just like pull up in and buy something that is
Mm.
made from someone whose hands
Mm.
that doesn't really exist in the Bronx.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. So speaking of those things, at least I think they do exist. I think that we don't know where they are, and not especially
Oh,
not to the extent where it should be. It's very far and few between.
correct.
No, have you identified any for yourself yet, or you're kind of still scouting for that kind of thing, or lobbying for those things to be more prominent than they already are? Like a small business owner that's a tailor, but she's not out there yet. She doesn't
Yeah,
have any
so I
name.
actually, Edwin Reyes, he is a young designer out of the Bronx. I love Edwin so much. We've worked together in a
Okay.
number of capacities. He's in the Bronx, and he had a fashion show at oh, is it Cocoa Bar? Do you know what I'm talking about? It's like a Chinese. It's like a chocolate restaurant
Wow.
over by, no, it's really cool. It's is it Cortez? Something like that. But it was like a Puerto Rican owned like chocolate cafe.
Cool.
And he had his fashion show there. So I know that it exists, but it is very like if you know, you know.
Hmm.
I'm just a person trying to Google like where can I get a hem taken up? You can find a dry cleaner maybe, but
Yeah.
if I'm looking for like black owned designer or like black owned boutique in the Bronx. I'm sure it exists. I personally don't know it. I live in Brooklyn now. So,
Mhm.
I'm not going to the Bronx to shop. Maybe it's there, but I
Yeah,
don't.
yeah. We'll get that name from you so we can link that in our newsletter too. Awesome. So growing up, I know you're not there anymore, but growing up in the Bronx, what were the aspects that made it home for you? What do when you think of the Bronx when you think of when you were growing up, and what's like the first couple of memories that's come to your mind?
You know, I I did the before I got into my high school, I grew up by Yankee Stadium. So I have just like very fond memories of like Malali's, and like my grandmother used to go to the track across the street from me. Well, it was Yankee Stadium at the time. Go to the track to like exercise and like walk around, and like the McDonald's on 161st, going there after school and going to Crown Donuts, and like all of that stuff. I have very like fond memories of that. Um, and then in high school, moving up to 241st is a completely different world. Um, and it was a lot quieter. And we moved into a house. It was so much space. I had a backyard and all this stuff, and it just was calm. Like for the most part, it was calm.
Mm,
And I think people have like such a, from social media, from music, have like in movies, like have a very skewed idea of the Bronx. And while those things do exist, for me, um, I didn't have like the experience that you see um on television and in media,
mm,
you know.
mm,
Obviously you had to keep your head on a swivel, you had to stay safe.
yeah.
But for the most part, like I went to school, I came home, I went to work, like um it was calm.
Yeah,
It was calm. So for me, like when I think about the Bronx, I think about parks and like greenery and like the pool in the summer and like baseball games and like riding my bike to Harlem and all of that.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So maybe it could be a little bit touchy, but what, because you left
Mhm.
when you had probably had your reasons for that, like a lot of us do, but why do you think so many people leave the Bronx or relocate? And what do you think the challenges or the opportunities or the reasons that contribute to, people leaving and kind of not looking back?
Yeah. I left the Bronx because where I last lived, I just was tired of waking up and not seeing people that looked like me. I
Mm,
lived very specifically, I lived on Bedford Park and Grand Concourse. Um, and no one in my neighborhood looked like me except for the woman that lived across the hall from me. But
mm,
when I would like go out to the laundromat, go out to the store, go to get my nails done, like just walking down the street, I didn't see Black people. And at that time, that was something that I really needed. I was spending a lot of money, a lot of time traveling to Brooklyn, on weekends to like party in Harlem. And, you know, I just wanted to go out. I needed the creative juice. Like I needed to be inspired. And I just wasn't getting that where I lived.
mm.
And, being on two for it again, like where I was living, it all was, I just wasn't seeing I didn't feel represented. Like I didn't see anyone who looked like me in like many capacities.
Did,
Um,
sorry.
no, it's okay. Go ahead. What's your question?
Did that contribute to your push for representation,
Yeah.
inclusiveness now? Mm,
Yeah. I think growing up, obviously I grew up in a Black family from the South, but there was a lot of shame around um, body types.
mm,
And like I looked different than like my mom or like my grandma's idea of like what a body should look like. And then I went to school and I was like one of the bigger kids at school. And it just was like, as I got older, I'm like, I want to be the thing that I needed to see as a kid to like
mm,
feel safe. So um a lot of that has driven the work that I've done. It's just like really trying to be the thing that I needed to see.
mm.
Yeah. So yeah, a lot of that did contribute to me leaving the Bronx. Because when I went to like the BAM festival in Brooklyn and like when I would go visit my family in Harlem, like it was just a completely different vibe. It was a
Mm.
completely different vibe. And I've just felt seen more in other boroughs. But I love the Bronx. I will always, if anyone says anything about the Bronx,
Yeah.
I'm mad. And I'm definitely going to be defending it, like Um, I love where I grew up. I think it really shaped the person that I am. And there's a level of resilience because
Mm,
people feel very strongly against us. It feels like you constantly like you kind of build up that, yeah, I'm from the Bronx, and like like you have to kind of fight
mhm,
it back. And
mhm.
so Um, just in general, I think it's a beautiful borough. I just where I was in all the pockets I was in, I just didn't feel represented.
So aside from definitely the resilience, aside from maybe like from that, what are the other aspects of growing up in the Bronx, being from the Bronx, that you feel you kind of carry with you in your everyday work and kind of like filter this kind of filtered through the things that you do that inspires you? Like, what do you think some of more of those like specific pieces or traits that you might have learned or just been influenced by or inspired by as you were growing up, or even as you go back now, that show up for you today?
I think a lot of it is culture. Obviously, a lot of things that are rooted in like Black and Latino like culture it comes from the Bronx, right? And so my mom also growing up from the Bronx, like most of my family being from the Bronx and Harlem, I also hold on to their experiences a lot. And like my mom used to be like a dancer in the 80s. And so like a lot of that like early hip hop energy, I like really am like, I I know that that was a part of my, I guess, my lineage, like,
Mhm.
so, and yeah, and my aunts and my uncles as well, like they were there for that. And so, I'm like, my family experienced that, and I think that's really cool. Um, and just in general, I think people don't think about how many different types of people are in the Bronx, and I think that it really you I understand Spanish. I may not respond, but I know when you're talking about me. You know what I mean? Like I know what's being said. I can understand it conversationally. And that just comes from being around different kinds of people. I also went to Bronx Science, where there's so many different kinds of people at that school. And so it's a melting pot. And it's the same obviously with like Queens,
Mhm.
um, and just being raised in New York City in general. We're just around so many different kinds of people. But specifically in the Bronx, like being on White Plains, like I was around mad Jamaicans. I was also around mad Africans, being by Yankee Stadium, I was around mad Puerto Ricans, but Bedford Park, I was by mad Dominican, like it's just so many different kinds of people. Um, it kind of makes it easy for me to be a chameleon. Like I can go into any social setting and be good because
Mhm.
I've been around so many different types of people my whole life.
Yeah. There was a piece I just did in one of our last newsletters, and I want to say it was I'm gonna say it was Fordham University. I can't remember which university it was. I'm so sorry. They they have an archival of Bronx history in there. And for the piece, I was kind of deep diving into it. It was for Black History Month. And it was just showing like the history of all the people, the melting pot that the Bronx was, and all the people that came through, and the different dances and cultures and everything. And I didn't even know this. And
Hmm.
so yeah, you're right on. Of course, I know about Jamaicans and Dominicans and things like that, but like that level of the melting pot and then being like that entryway, kind of how I can associate
Yeah.
New York on, maybe Manhattan or Queens. I never associated Bronx with like a melting pot sort of analogy. But you're absolutely right. It really, really is.
It really, really is. I think because of popular media, people think that the Bronx is mostly Hispanic, and it is like really is not. Like, obviously, they're there, everybody's there, but I'm like, there's whole neighborhoods. Obviously, Italians are there. There's Polish people in the Bronx. The Bronx actually used to be very Jewish. Um, and when you are in the South Bronx, there's a lot of, and even like when you go down to Grand Concourse, there's so many buildings that have um, these plazas in the front of them. And a lot of them used to have, sorry, I'm getting focal. A lot of them used to have like fountains and stuff. And that was where like rich white people would have their horses pull up into to drop them off. And a lot of people don't know that. And they think about, the Bronx is burning and, like how apartments being decrepit and falling apart. Um, but I'm like, this actually used to be, the Bronx used to be one of the like richest spots in New York City.
Yep.
It's just, with redlining and the
Yep.
creation of ghettos and all of that stuff, um, once they let a certain amount of us in, everyone fled. And so,
Well, you can go down that
yeah,
journey. I'm gonna bring I'm gonna
yeah,
bring it back up
we
a
can
little
bring it back
later.
to
We'll start
close.
going down that one, and you won't let me shut up.
Yeah,
So back to you as a stylist.
yeah.
Stylist that I see that advocates for diversity. What have been the most significant? And it's probably been a few, but maybe like the one that comes to mind first, or the hardest barrier that you've encountered in just pushing for inclusivity and representation.
Um, when it comes to high fashion,
Mhm.
it's such a catch-22 because people will tell you, oh, it's too expensive, or oh, people don't want it. But I'm like, how can people want something that has never been available to them? you know? And so it's like you have to be the person and you have to be the catalyst for change. And you have to be the person that's like, hey, I want to stand for this. I want to stand for something. And I want to be one of the people that provides access. And so the biggest barrier for me, I talk about this all the time, but when you think of a stylist, most people think about people who know about the creative directors and the history of this brand and that brand. I don't really care about that stuff because high fashion brands were literally never available to me. They were never speaking to me. And so for me, I'm like, who are the brands that care about me? Who are the brands that make clothes in my size? Who are the brands who are trying, even if they don't make it, who are trying to have those conversations? Um, so really the biggest barrier has just been those conversations and even getting people to make a sample in a
Mm,
size like 18. It it is you have to already like be in that space and like be rich and all the people and so for me it has been a barrier because I didn't take like the traditional route to get to where I am.
mm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's yeah, it's tough. So
It's
if you're not already in that space, then yeah, how could you can't even can't even be in the room to have make the request
I have
for
those
the
conversations.
size because they won't let you in the room in the first place because
Correct. And
mm,
I will say, like, I have ended up in rooms that I didn't think that I would be in, which is
that's
incredible,
it. Hmm.
obviously. But at the end of the day, it's a business for a lot of people, and a lot of people don't see um they don't really see the value and the worth of putting in the effort because it is an effort. Because you're kind of going against the grain by standing for this representation in itself. And of course, like it costs money to make a sample. So, you know,
But
it's work.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
But it seems like you've had some success and you have a pretty impressive portfolio. So how do you choose your partners and or the projects that align with what you're trying to push?
Um,
How do you find them and then how do you choose them?
I have really been very fortunate that I haven't had to do much choosing. A lot of what I've done has come to me by way of referral, by way of just my social media presence. When I started styling, I already had a like stable following on like Instagram, YouTube, whatever, on social media. And so when I had made like the hard decision to pursue it, once I did one of them, I already had like celebrities following me just as a person from my personal brand. And so um once they saw I were doing it, they were like, "Oh, wait, I know you were doing this now." And it just all kind of happened very organically. Um, for me, it was really about making a decision about who it was that I wanted to style.
Hmm.
And when I first started, obviously, like I was really focused on curve. I was really focused on Black women. Um, and so a lot of my portfolio is like Black curve celebrities, actresses, because that, again, when I think about my work, I'm like, I want to do things that I needed to see. And for me, it was like growing up, my only representation was really like Khadijah, like Queen
Mm.
Latifah on Living Single, you know what I mean? So it's like,
Oh,
but
who never came to play. Love the
it'll
dude.
never. And like all the Black moms on all the sitcoms, like that was all I really had that kind of looked like me. So when it came to styling, it was like, okay, I didn't have to do anything, but I haven't really said no to anyone. I think because it's like very clear the kind of work that I do,
Hmm.
I get a very specific kind of person that comes to me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it's cool.
That's awesome. So, in kind of keeping with that, I find myself as a stylist uh constantly trying to figure out or reframe, depending on who the client is, how to educate them and how to educate them on just body positivity and confidence, especially for more my curvy clients. I have that little added challenge that I'm not myself is not in that lane. So sometimes they looking at me like, okay, girl, you don't know my struggle. No, I don't. Not in the way that you do, but
Right,
doesn't change, my passion for it or my belief in that everyone should feel good about themselves.
right.
But it can be just different in how to just keep that encouragement going, especially when you can't find something in their size or they want something and it's not available or sold out or they just don't make it at all. And so asking you, how do you continue to inspire your clients? How do you uplift them? How do you encourage them, especially when they're having those moments of I'm not gonna look good in that. I don't even want to try that. That's not made for me. That's made for, that body type. But I'm sure you hear the gambit of it. And so
Yeah.
how do you work with that?
I think a lot of it, and I don't think people realize that the nuance in working with a curve client. I, because I live in this body too, and I also have been a model before I was doing all of this and like as an influencer, like being on sets and stuff like that. If something doesn't fit, I will never say out loud that it doesn't fit. Like I will never struggle to pull a zipper up, because then people start to get in their head that they are too big for a garment. I mean, so like I did a shoot on Sunday and they sent me a sample in the wrong size. I told them my model was a 12. They sent me a 10. And I started to zip it up. It didn't fit. And she immediately was like, yeah, my back is too big and blah, blah.
Um,
And I was like, babe, I really need you to release that idea from your mind. Your back is not big. This garment is just not the right size for you. So I always tell people like 80% of my job is therapy and psychology. 20% of my job is clothes. I try to make sure, especially like as my clients like their sizes are bigger, I try to have options for them. I work like tirelessly to make sure that they have the same amount of clothes on a rack that someone who is a size like 10 or 14 would have. Um if that me it's that is just like a personal thing for me. I know what it's like to go to a set and not have clothes or it's something super plain. So like I try to make sure that I have a lot. Um, but it really is just a manner of putting yourself in a position and thinking like, if I were in this person's position, what would make me get in my head? And so when it comes to fittings and stuff like that, it's really just thinking about language. When it comes to people maybe not feeling like they can try something on, I'm always like, hey, just humor me. I think this color will look really nice on you. I just want to see what it looks like. You know what I mean? Or I'll be like, I know that you think that, or if there's something that, if I have a client who's like, I don't really like bodycon or something like that, I'll bring it in a bigger size. Like I'll bring two of them just so they can see what it looks like on them if we have it tailored. So if I have a client who is a size 18, um, doesn't love bodycon, but I see something that I think will look really nice on them, I may bring it in a size 20. And then we can look in the mirror and I can see, oh, if we just pull the waist in here a little bit and then they still have some room, but you still have that shape and that silhouette, and I'm like, okay, well, if we take it to the tailor, da da da, and they can see it and they're like, oh, okay, yeah, because it's not super tight, but you still get the body.
yep. Hmm.
So it's little slight things like that that make a really big difference.
Hmm.
Um, and it's also about finding like other things like I love your personality, so I got you these feather, like I got you this fur, or you know what I mean? Like I think this color would really complement your skin tone. And just finding other things. So it's not so focused on someone's body.
Hmm.
Because a lot of people, even the people you think are the most confident, are not comfortable in their bodies.
Hmm. Hmm.
So yeah. And that's personal styling clients, that's celebrity clients, that's models. Like everyone has the same issues, quite honestly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I used to be a bra fitter back at Nordstrom forever ago.
Bra fitting, yeah.
Yes. So so yeah, I've seen it and I was literally amazed. I was, this is like 10 years ago, at everyone grabs here. Everyone. There'd be
Everyone.
nothing, whether there's something there and nothing there.
Mhm.
Everyone grabs. I'm just looking like, what are you
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah. And it's
Everyone.
also interesting too with specifically with bra fitting, you have people have such a specific, if you think you're a 34, you've been a 34 since you were 20 years old, and you're like, there's no way I'm a 36. Being
Mhm.
a 36 doesn't mean that you have now gained 50 pounds. It
Right,
just means that your body has changed a little bit, and we maybe need to go up a band and down in a cup. And when
right,
you have the right bra on, it
right.
literally takes 20 pounds off of you.
It
And
sure
people do
does.
not realize that. So my first step is always, let's get you
Foundation.
fitted.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get you fitted. Like I'll book an
No harm.
appointment. If you need me to be there, I'll be there. But it is like a lot of it is so mental. So
Yes,
much of it is just like the psychology of fashion. I don't think people don't talk about it a lot, and it's something that I personally deal with all the time.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, for our curve women that watch this and they're still kind of playing that mental game with, they want to change or elevate or try something new in their wardrobe, but they're like, they want to wait dot 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 for dot dot dot. What is something or some advice that you might give them to kind of take that first step to kind of get out of their head?
You know, I also do like closet audits is what I call it. And it's when, I come to your house and we clean up your closet. I let people keep one or two items. Most people actually have closets full of clothes that do not fit them because they are holding on to an idea of something. And I'm like, you cannot be present in your body and in your life if you have a closet full of stuff that does not work for you. You're not going to enjoy your day if your clothes do not fit you. So when I do the cleanups, I let you keep one or two things. Everything else has to go. If you
Yep,
want to put it in storage, you want to donate it, you want to sell whatever, but it cannot be here because it is taking up space. And it's like physical space, but also like space in your mind and your life. Because if you can go in the morning and just go grab something that fits and go about your day, it makes a world of a difference with how you experience your life.
absolutely.
Um, so yeah, I think, and this is also like one of the things with working with Curve, and this is anybody, but I find it more with Curve, like this idea that I'm gonna hold on to this because I'm gonna lose what I've
Mm-hmm.
lost.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have been saying it, like, and this is not to say that it will never happen, but it's like you have you you will just be in a constant state of like, what if?
Right,
And like not allowing yourself to have enjoyment,
right.
so it's just like we have to release it. And again, this is with all I have clients who size 4, 6, 8.
Mhm.
They too have closets full of clothes that do not fit.
Right.
This is most people are like, no, no, I'm gonna hold on to this, and it's like, but why?
Always say dress for the body you have now.
Always dress for the body that you have now. Because the other thing too is like being in a sense of gratitude to the body
Mhm.
that you have now.
Yes.
And it is rude to the body that you have now
Yes.
to tell it that it doesn't deserve good things. You know what I mean? Like,
Mm.
you don't deserve clothes that fit. Why? That's rude to yourself,
I
you
like
know?
that.
So it really it is being in a constant state. Yeah, there's no gratitude there, which is not helpful for anyone.
Absolutely. I like that. All right, two more questions. And so, second to last, what advice, if any, would you give upcoming stylists, especially one from the Bronx, on just in general, on just making it?
Um, it like be creative.
Mhm.
So many people, I get so many like emails and DMs about how to start, and I'm like, just start. Like, you can make garments from anything. You know, it's not about knowing and this is my personal vibe. Some people do really thrive on like the connections and like being at the parties and like all of that stuff. For
Mhm.
me, it's more about like tap into where you are. Specifically, if you're in New York, there's mad people here. There's mad designers here. There's clothing designers, shoe designers, jewelry designers. Like there's so many people here. Go outside, experience things, be inspired, and just get creative. Be resourceful. Um, Tap your friends, like, get people to model for you. But you don't need to have so much to start. It's really just like be creative, be yourself, and then everything else will start to fall in place.
I love
And
it.
use social media. Like social media, um, it can change your life. It is a game changer. If you are creative, you do good work, and you post it, they will come for sure.
I love it.
Hmm.
All right, final question.
Final question.
If you could write a love letter to the Bronx, what would it say?
Oh, if I could write a love letter to the Bronx, um, I would tell her to keep her head up, um, and not to believe what people say about her. Um, again, I think how she is represented online, as long as she knows what's in her heart, that's all that matters. Um, if you've been there, you know it. Um, and I think thinking about a love letter, I would really just like stay open, stay true to who you are, and allow people in. And I think that that's the thing is like people have such a guarded view of the Bronx, but it's like once you're there and you really allow yourself to experience it, it's such a beautiful borough. It's like such a beautiful place, and you have to be open to it, and she will just open her arms to you if you are open to her.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, thank you so much, Ms. Augustine. It has been an
Thank
absolute
you.
pleasure.